Hello and welcome to the Podcast Engineering Show. My name is Chris Curran. I produce podcasts for companies and I teach podcast production at Podcast Engineering School. And every week on this show, we bring you podcast production techniques on a silver platter. We alternate between interview episodes with podcast producers and engineers and daily goody episodes like this one, where I'm going to overview actually today, 9 of my previous Daily Goody blog posts. And by the way, you can sign up to receive the Daily Goodies via email, daily or as a weekly roundup. Just go to podcastengineeringschool.com. And don't forget, April 20th, you know what that date is? That's the date the next Podcast Engineering School semester starts. Yeah, the semester starts April 20th, so there's still time to get on board. I'm using a brand new microphone for the first time. I'm going to tell you what it is in a minute. First, I'm going to tell you something else. But after we get through all that, then we're going to go through the daily goodies, and it's going to be really cool. There's a lot of good goodies. Oh, my God. Did I just say that? So first of all, Focusrite is a sponsor of my show for at least for the next 4 or 5 months or so. But the Scarlett series of interfaces, I want to tell you about that real quick. The Scarlett series, now in its 3rd generation, is the world's best-selling USB interface range with over 3 million units sold worldwide. 3 million. And there's a bunch of different interface models you can choose from with either 1 input, 2 inputs, 4 inputs, or 8 microphone inputs, depending on what you need for your show. And the sound quality is really good. It works with any software you're already using. Works with any type of XLR microphone. So these are just really handy, good, solid interfaces. The Focusrite Scarlett series. They even have this loopback little app where you can actually record Skype and Zoom calls directly into your recording software with no funny business, no workarounds. And there's a new air feature as well on the 3rd generation of Scarlett interfaces. There's an air button, and it really adds a lot of high frequencies, probably 10 or 12K and above, something like that. And it just, if your microphone needs a little more clarity, that air button can really help. So thank you, Focusrite, for sponsoring this episode. And today I'm speaking into, guess what microphone? By the way, could you tell just by hearing my voice through this mic what mic it is? Well, actually, it's a relatively new mic on the market, and it's the Samson Q9U. Yeah, we've all heard of the Samson Q2U. That's been around for a long time, and that's a mic right on par with the classic ATR 2100, right? The Q2U. But this is the Q9U. This is a dynamic broadcast microphone, and the folks at Samson just sent me one. Thanks to Ira over there. Ira's awesome. And they just sent me this. They're like, hey, here, you want to try it? I was like, okay. And they're like, here, try it. So they're not a sponsor or anything. They just sent me the mic, and I'm like, you know what? I'll try it. But it's a cool mic because you can plug it in XLR, but it's also a USB mic as well, and you can do both simultaneously. Just a few details. It can record 24-bit, 96 kilohertz resolution. It's a neodymium capsule. So, anyway, so I haven't even heard my voice on this mic yet. I'm talking into it right now and recording, and then in post-production, I'll finally get to hear it. And I of course, I will probably add, a little EQ and compression, and, I'll do my thing, right? I'll mix it. I won't go overboard, but I'll tweak it up a little. And so this is the Samson Q9U going XLR into the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 Gen 3, which I just told you about. So anyway, thanks to Samson, thanks to Focusrite. This is great. In my headphones, I usually don't monitor myself in my headphones, but I am today because I'm actually sitting at a different computer because the interface is not connected to my main computer. And anyway, let's get into these daily goodies. We're going to do 9 of them today, and we're going to start with why, oh my God, this question. Why pay for professional media hosting like Libsyn and Blubrry, etc.? Can't I just store my MP3 files on my website server instead of paying for professional media hosting? Okay, this is a question that a lot of new podcasters ask, and it's a decent question to ask because, why not? why not just put all my podcast files on my web server? Well, there's many reasons, and there's even a post in the Podcasters Lounge Facebook group where I asked a lot of the heavy hitters, a lot of the old school podcasting heavy hitters, to chime in and say why they believe that professional media hosting is much better than hosting it on your website. A lot of it has to do with bandwidth capabilities, I should say. But here's the real answer is you can do whatever you want, right? We know this with podcasting. You can literally do whatever you want. So if you don't want to pay for hosting, put it on your website. That's fine. If you have any problems, oh well, just deal with the problems. But if you want a professional media host like Libsyn or Blubrry or some other big names, a lot of people think, including me, that these services are worth paying for because of what they offer and because of the support as well, right? When I have any problems, I just have to send a ticket into Libsyn and they're on top of it. They fix it. It's done. It's just whatever the problem is, it gets fixed. Like usually the same day, or at least by the next day. So anyway, but there's a lot to that. So click through. By the way, all the links for to each daily goodie I'm talking about today in the show notes. There's direct links to each daily goodie. So just click on that one, and then you'll see a link to the Facebook post and all that. If you're still on Facebook, which I'm not on Facebook anymore. Well, whatever. That's another conversation. Next daily goodie, the Townsend Labs Sphere L22 microphone. Townsend Labs Sphere L22 microphone. This microphone emulates several vintage microphones, and this mic costs around $1,500. It's a large diaphragm condenser. This is this is a serious microphone. One of my PES graduates has this microphone, and he loves it. And Bandrew has used it on his podcastage videos, a bunch of them back from October 2020. And he loved it. And so I haven't tried it yet, but these mics are so cool. Like these large diaphragm condenser mics that are usually $1,000 or more, and they emulate like a bunch of different classic mics, like maybe 5 or 8 classic microphones, like, the Neumann U47, the Neumann U67, the AKG C12, all these different, legendary mics. This mic emulates them, and people are loving it. So maybe one day I'll try that mic, but I don't do what Bandrew does. So, Bandrew has like literally hundreds of mics. I actually asked him one time, how many mics do you have? He told me, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say. All right, the next daily goodie, the Shure MV7. Yeah, it's a new microphone for podcasting and gaming. Well, it was new about 4 or 5 months ago. The Shure MV7. It's a dynamic mic. It has both USB and XLR outputs. In fact, the Shure MV7 is very comparable to the mic I'm using right now, the Samson Q9U. They're actually very similar. There are differences. But the Shure MV7, really cool mic because it sort of emulates the classic Shure SM7B. But this MV7 only costs about $250, and it has some software that comes with it where you can actually, while you're recording, you can actually add a little bit of compression, which, so Ralph M. Rivera bought one of these for his wife, and then I think he stole it from her immediately. But anyway, when his wife, for the one day that his wife got to use it, of course I'm kidding, Ralph and Carolyn are the best. But anyway, I actually got on a Zoom call with Carolyn, and I sound checked her on this mic, and she was changing the settings, and I was hearing what it did. And this Shure MV7, the compression that it adds in the little app that comes with it is pretty good, man. Like pretty good. It really brings the voice closer and makes it sound more intelligible and just closer and sort of more in your face. Above the background noise, stuff like that. So I thought the MV7 was pretty cool. All right, the next one was an actual episode of my show, but the next daily goodie, the way you monitor affects your production a lot. So the way you monitor affects your production a lot. And the way you monitor means, how are you monitoring the audio? Are you wearing headphones? Are you listening through speakers? Are you listening through your phone speaker? Like how are you monitoring? So monitoring your audio with no coloration from your headphones or speakers will ensure that your final mixes sound good to everyone, everywhere. So one of the things about monitors, any speakers, any headphones, they actually color the sound a bit. And sometimes they color the sound a lot. So they can, for instance, a lot of these, I think like Beats and a lot of these other consumer headphones, they really add a bunch of really low end, and then a bunch of really high end. So it makes it sound more crystal clear, and it also adds this big low end. And okay, fine, for listening as a consumer, that sounds great. But when you're trying to produce audio, you don't actually want your speakers to be colored at all. You want to hear the playback flat. You want to hear the frequencies flat. So what they do, what you can get is some software that actually will flatten out the frequency curve of your speakers or your headphones. And I use SonarWorks for that. It's called Reference 4. And there's also another one called Morphit from Tone Boosters. Anyway, in the Daily Goody post, I link to both of those. But that's kind of important to know because, if you've ever done a mix, if you ever mixed down a podcast episode and then you take it in your car or you play it up through your TV or something and it just sounds horrible, it's probably because the way you're monitoring the audio when you're producing it might not be the best. And so if you want to flatten out your frequency curve of your monitors, that's really helpful. Now, it's not absolutely necessary because whatever monitors you're using, you can get used to them over time and you can learn those monitors and then you can make mixes that sound really good. It just takes time to learn those particular monitors. And then if you ever change headphones, let's say, well, then you got to learn a whole new frequency curve on those headphones, which is going to take literally months. So anyway, I think that's really important, and that's one of the things I teach at Podcast Engineering School because if you're going to be a real professional, you have to know what you're hearing. You have to. Okay, next Daily Goody is the podcast. Oh, well, this is called The Big List. It's a list I made of podcast audio plugins. So I made a big, huge list of basically every plugin I own and a lot of plugins that I don't own, compressors, EQs, channel strips. So it's just a big, huge list, and it's separated into categories like EQ plugins, compressor plugins, saturation plugins, all different things. So I don't know. It might be fun to check out. And I actually, I thought it's kind of a good resource. So if you ever want to get some more plugins or you want to look into what other plugins are popular and good, this big list of podcast production plugins that I made can be helpful. So anyway, again, the link is in the show notes. Next Daily Goody. The 2 computer settings where you need to verify that your mic is active and recording properly. Okay, so there's 2 computer settings that are vital when you're recording audio, when you're recording anyone on a microphone. Number 1 is at the computer level, their USB microphone or their audio interface should be the chosen input device. So your computer, it's just in the settings. You have to tell your computer, what is your input device? Is it an audio interface? Is it a Focusrite 2i2? Or is it an XLR microphone, like a Samson Q9U, which is what I'm using right now? But I'm actually using the XLR output of this mic right now. So anyway, you have to make sure your computer is set to the right input device. That's number 1. Number 2 is wherever you're recording the audio. Typically, if you're recording interviews online, you might be using Squadcast or Zencaster or Riverside, which apparently Riverside in the past 3 or 4 months has come a long way. And because when I saw Riverside about 9 months ago, they were still sort of building it, and it was there, but I wasn't very impressed. It was fine, seemed fine. I didn't use it that much, but now apparently they've really upped their game. Riverside.fm, I think that's the URL. But anyway, the second place, you have to make sure that the correct microphone is chosen, or the correct input device is in those applications. Like in Zencastr, you have to pick your input. In Squadcast, you have to choose your input. Riverside, same thing. So those are the two places where you always have to check them before you record any person, anywhere, anytime, any day, on any computer, over the internet. You have to verify those two things with every host, with every guest, period. That's it. Those are the two places you need to make sure your input is set properly. And, once you get in the habit of doing that, it's not hard. And that'll save a lot of problems. Because, what we've all heard of them. Here's the main reason you have to do all that. Here's the main reason. Because there's a major problem that sometimes happens where someone will do an entire interview and they will have recorded the wrong microphone. Like for instance, the guest might have a really good microphone, like a Blue Yeti. Just kidding. The guest might have, an RE20 going through, a Focusrite Scarlett. But in their computer, that's not what's chosen. Their onboard computer microphone is the microphone that gets recorded. And that sounds horrible compared to a real microphone, right? So you know what I'm saying? Like, someone can have an awesome microphone and do an entire interview, and then at the end, the recording sounds like absolute rubbish because it was recorded through the stupid computer microphone. So that's why you got to check. That's the reason. That's what you need to avoid. Yeah, that's why you have to actually check that before you record anyone ever over the internet, especially. Okay, next daily goodie. Oh, this is a fun one. Not really. It's not really fun. Nasty microphone hum from old school headsets. Yeah, do you ever have a guest who was connecting from a headset from like 1991? I don't know. I'm just making that up. But like some of these old school headsets, and of course by headset, I mean, it's almost like you're wearing headphones and then there's a little boom arm that comes off of one of the ears, and there's a microphone on the end of that boom arm that goes right in front of your mouth, right? That's what I mean by old school headset, okay? Because that's what everybody always meant until recent years when everyone just uses the wrong words for everything and no one knows what anyone's talking about anymore. But to me, that's an old school headset. And so sometimes when you have a guest, they won't sound too bad. Like, they'll sound okay, but underneath that, there'll be the nastiest 60 cycle hum you've ever heard in your life. And it was like, bzzz, bzzz. And like when you open it up in Isotope RX afterwards, like there's the brightest orange line on the bottom, right around 60 hertz. Anyway, the only reason I'm mentioning that is because it just I've noticed that many times. And of course, if you're using it's not difficult to remove if you're using something like Isotope RX. But if you don't have Isotope RX, then I don't know how you would remove that. I mean, there might be other de-hum modules somewhere, but RX would be the main tool for that. Or, by the way, if you didn't have RX, one way to fix that, it's not the best way, but you could just roll off the low end, like below like maybe, 80 or 90 hertz, just sharply roll off the low end using a filter. And that would, you can remove it that way, but then you're also removing a lot of the low end of the person's voice. But to avoid that hum, it's worth it, right? Just roll off the low end from like 80 or 90 or even 100 hertz. Just sharply roll it off with a steep roll off. And then that'll get rid of it too, if you don't want to spend $1,200 on RX. Which, by the way, if you enroll in podcast engineering school, you get 50% off Isotope RX. So that's $600 right there. All right, next daily goodie. Do presentation mistakes by podcast hosts actually draw listeners in? Do presentation mistakes by podcast hosts actually draw listeners in? Or are they just annoying? I began thinking of this because, if really good hosts, like professional hosts on professional radio and TV, they don't say, they don't, they don't mess around. They just present professionally, and that's that. But with podcasters, a lot of podcasters, most podcasters actually, amateurs, they don't know any of that. They say and they just do a million things that sort of aren't necessary and can distract the listener. But then one day I was thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? When someone fumbles around for their words a little bit, it almost draws you in as a listener. You're like, it's not quite like watching a train wreck, like just something that you just have to watch. You can't take your eyes off it because it's just so captivating. It's not really that. It's just like, maybe it is like a mini train wreck, and you're just like, you have to listen. It sort of draws the listener in. Because sometimes if someone's listening to a podcast and the host is just very professional and they're always speaking the same way and they never mess up and they ba-da-da-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba, like, you can sort of get lulled to sleep as a listener. And so that's what brought up this question in my mind, was like, do presentation mistakes actually draw the listener in? I know that sounds stupid, and maybe it is stupid because maybe I'm stupid. I don't know. But anyway, so I just was like, what do you guys think? Yeah, Chris Duckett commented. He said, "I'd like my podcast to be a bit more real. Do I get rid of annoyingly repeated words, and things that detract in general? Yes, but I don't remove content usually for the sake of making it perfect. I do think that real, engaging, not too sanitized podcasts are more engaging. I hear the podcasts that are written like a book and I feel disconnected from them and don't really care about the content as much as a conversation between friends." So that's interesting, right? So anyway, if you want to chime in on that question, please, the link's in the show notes. If you want to comment in that thread and tell me I'm wrong or tell me I'm an idiot or cancel me. All right, this is the last daily goodie of today. The FGX mastering processor from Slate Digital. Okay, the FGX mastering processor. This is an award-winning mastering plugin that contains a compressor and loudness enhancer. So one of my guests from a long time ago was using this as basically a mastering compressor on his master bus. And he said he really liked it. But I've never tried it. I still haven't tried it. But I think other people have tried it and they like it. There's a 15-day trial available, as with most plugins. So anyway, I was wondering if you tried the FGX mastering processor from Slate Digital. I actually haven't tried any plugins from Slate Digital, and they make a lot of plugins. And Slate Digital actually has some deal where, like, for like $15 a month, you can get all their plugins, but you have to pay $15 a month ongoing, right? And then as soon as you stop paying, then you don't have access to any plugins, right? So anyway, that's one model, which I don't really like. I like to buy my plugins so that I own them, and that's it. I own it, and so that's it. So, all right, well, those are the daily goodies for this episode. Again, if you want to receive the daily goodies in your email every day or a weekly roundup, go to the website, podcastengineeringschool.com. I definitely appreciate you listening. Thank you for all your emails and messages. If you ever have questions about podcast production, don't forget, just send me a note on the website. There's a contact page. Just send me a note. Even if you just want to say hi, send me a note. And I also wanted to quickly mention, I started a community on locals.com, and it's called Podcast Production. The URL is podcastproduction.locals.com. And it's a cool platform. It's still up and coming. You know, it's not huge like Twitter or Facebook or anything. But you can get a free account on Locals, and you can join the group, and you can see all the content that I post and that the other supporters post. However, to be able to comment on any of the posts there, you would need to contribute at least $2 a month. So if you want to become a member for $2 a month, you can. And then you can comment, and then you can actually post there as well. But if not, just join it and read, check out the posts. And because I post videos, I actually post videos where I talk about things, I explain things, little, tips and tricks. So you can watch those videos for free. So anyway, it's podcastproduction.locals.com. And there's a bunch of cool people already there. Eric Hunley, Brian Ensminger, Mike Wilkerson, Daryl Darnell, Bandrew Scott, Ross Brand, Roy Stegman, Heather Welch, Daniel Abendroth, the mighty Ed Sullivan, Leslie Martin, Paul you-know-who, Jason Sheasley, Jason Bryant, Carrie Caulfield, Eric, and John Buchanan. And a lot more now. I actually haven't added to that list. But anyway, that's the episode. Thank you, guys. Reach out if you have any questions. And as always, I hope you now and forever sound great. Okay, that's the end.